Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Monday, June the 4th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. And it's been an interesting start to the week. I have been testing myself quite assiduously on this new 30-day program I'm on, Wendy, where I try to make sure that any time I get into a negative thought pattern, I stop myself and say, wait, I want a better feeling thought than that. And today was like every 10 minutes, oh, wait, I need a new thought. Oh, wait, I need a new thought. Oh, wait. It's been quite the test today.
Well, first, let me compliment you on using the word arduous. I had to go, arduous. What does that mean? I've heard it before.
Actually, I used assiduous, but it's close. Arduous, assiduous, they're very, very
close. Then I don't
words.
know I don't even know what assiduous means. Give me a definition. Word for the day.
Assiduous. Let's see. Probably the best way to describe it. It's like showing perseverance and care. It's like, well, let's look it up. Yeah, showing great care and perseverance. Okay, so there it is.
Well done. I'm going to call you a dictionary. Call you the dictionary.
Yeah, I get that right about one out of every 20 times. I mean, that's how often I get a definition right. But
and that's not what this is about, but I do like to learn new words, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So anyway, back to your every 10-minute exercise that I'll bet you didn't plan for every 10 minutes.
Not really, no. It was. It has been quite a challenge, and I think I've done fairly well. There were a couple times where I kind of slipped for about 5 minutes or so, but then I would notice it and pick it up, and like, oh, nope, I need a better feeling thought than that. I even shouted it one time. I need a better feeling thought.
Well, can you give us an example of like how you became aware of something, and then what it was, and then what you did?
Oh, sure. I mean, there are a lot of them. Well, there was one particular point during the day where I had 3 phone calls in 2 minutes, and I was working on a really hot project that did not involve a phone call, and all of a sudden I was feeling myself torn in 20 directions at once, if you understand what I mean, and getting very frustrated by it, and almost to the point where one of the persons who called me, I kind of feel bad for him, but I kind of don't, because I've been giving him free email service for years, and he calls to complain about it. And I'm saying, what are you doing complain to me about free email service that you haven't had to pay a lick for, and I'm the one who's responsible for? I don't want to hear it. And then I got off the phone, I said, oh, wait, no, I need a better feeling thought.
And so then what happened after you shouted, I need a better feeling thought?
Actually, just the act of shouting it felt better.
Well,
I didn't have to worry about the next feeling thought. It was like, I honestly don't remember what came into my head at that point. All I knew is I felt better, so I just dove right back into what had to be done, because I had so many things that all had to be done at the same time. But it helped me get through it, and that's really the best.
I'm a huge believer that acknowledgement in itself can actually begin to shift energy.
Yeah.
And the fact that you went, I need a better feeling thought, that's acknowledgement of where you were. You didn't go into all the details with yourself of, because yourself knows exactly what you were experiencing.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool.
It kind of reminded me of the old movie from the 1970s, Network. Do you remember that one? Where they all the fans of the news program leaned out their windows and shouted, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Well, that's what I felt like I was doing. So
let's see. Today being June 4th, this is now 4 days.
Right, 4 days into
doing this new project.
Yeah, and even over the weekend, I found I was using it quite a bit. Not nearly as much as I kind of would expect to do during the week, but I mean, at least a half a dozen times on both Saturday and Sunday that I caught myself. So, I mean, the fact that I'm catching myself so often, I think that's the real victory, right there.
Oh yeah, I would agree. The awareness piece, to me, is the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. And
the fact that you had awareness, then you can do something about it. But when you're not even aware, it just kind of slips under the radar. So
exactly.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You're building a muscle to like catch things.
Well, it's about time. That's why I decided to do this, because it's like I know that stuff's been slipping through for the longest time, and I know it's been kind of holding me up in terms of what I want to have happen in my life. So I said, well, screw it. It's about time I actually nail this thing down. So I'm hoping that's what this is going to do. So far, I like the results in terms of me noticing it, and we'll see what happens in terms of actually turning the thoughts around over like a 30-day period. But so far, so good.
Yay.
Yay.
Cool.
How's your day been?
Very cool. My day's been really good. Today is my first first day back to my day job after being off for a week.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
And I kind of set my plan in advance. And it was so cool because, like, I've been off for a week, and this is probably the most disengaged I've ever allowed myself to go.
Mm.
In other words, I almost forgot I had a day job.
Oh, wow.
Except for that payday was on Tuesday. Outside of that, it's like I completely forgot I had a job.
Isn't it interesting how we never forget the payday? We may forget everything else, but payday, we remember that. I don't know why.
Well, actually, I have forgotten paydays before, which to me was like a mile marker in my world in terms of money, because it allowed me to recognize I was no longer living in the old way of paycheck to paycheck, where I was waiting for the money to come in so I could pay bills, because now I pay them in advance.
That's very good.
So yeah, but this week I did happen to know that payday was on Tuesday. And so, it was fun to go, wow, job. I really hope I remember what to do when I get there. I mean, because really, that's how disengaged I allowed myself to be. And of course, every time I have a vacation from my day job, I purposely take my time off to pretend what it would feel like when I'm back to being an entrepreneur again, calling my own shots, living my own schedule.
Sure.
And I think I must have done really good at it. So I was a little concerned, like, will I be able to get up with an alarm today? Because there are some days I've been sleeping in until noon. Other days I wake up at 4 a.m. It's just been really whatever the day called for is what I allowed it to happen. But I had no problem getting up today and, got to my job, and I just kind of set the pace that today is considered the end of the month date for, like, they process all the rest of the orders. They get 2 business days after the end of a calendar month. And so today is like the last day they're processing. And so I know that they'll still be booking until probably 8, 9, 10 o'clock tonight. So I knew that I was going to have to catch up on everything that my other assistant had been doing on my behalf. Plus I needed to process today's stuff. And so in the past, I would have freaked out going, oh my God, there's going to be so much to do. And I just really set the pace that I'll be able to handle everything in a way that feels easeful and comfortable, and I'll get more done in less time than I've ever done before without it feeling like effort. And I know that's how I set the pace. And I got to tell you, that's what's happening. I'm really shocked at where I am in my process in comparison to other times I've been off. I'm like, I think I'm way ahead of the curve. I'm like, this is feeling really good. I'm not freaking out when, coming to the show didn't make me go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to take an hour off. It's kind of like, oh yeah, no, totally cool. So coming back to work was easy, which I like that. And then it was an interesting weekend in that I slept an incredible amount of time. And I mean, like, I'd take like a 3-hour nap and I'd wake up and go, what was that about? Because trust me, I'm not doing anything physical. I'm not doing anything majorly mental. But I mean, when you fall asleep and you have a hard sleep,
yeah,
it was that kind of sleep. It wasn't like just a little, lay down and be half asleep, half. Okay. I mean, we're talking sleep. And I'm like, okay, well, and I kind of check in with my inner being, and I go, is everything okay? And I did, yes. And I'm like, so there's not a problem? No. I'm like, am I just processing a whole lot of stuff? And it, like, my body requires me to be asleep while it's rewiring stuff. And I would kind of get, yeah.
Well, it's not a bad way to do it. It's a good way to do it if you can do that.
Yeah. It's like, go ahead, rewire away.
Yeah, right.
And so yesterday, really slow paced day. But I was so aware of my thinking, and I was like receiving thoughts that were taking me to new places, expanding kind of Project X, my new career, expanded the vision for that. Now I've had, and I won't say what they are, but I've had some long-term business ideas for a long, long, long time. But it always felt as though, well, I need to get my ducks in a row, and that there's a particular sequence for these other things that I call it end game businesses to happen. And I was watching a program last night, Billions, which is on Showtime. And it wasn't so much what they were doing, but a little bit of how they were doing it. And the idea struck me, why am I waiting?
Okay.
Why am I waiting for the things that are way down, that I have always put way down the line, way at the end of the, like into my future? And I thought, well, okay, so the reason I've been waiting is because they require a lot of capital investment. And my internal response was, so why are you waiting? I'm like, yeah, why am I waiting? And then I got this notion, I know law of attraction now. I am not the person I was when I first came up with these ideas, where the idea of having to raise capital seemed like a really big, bad, hard thing. Now, I'll tell you what I'm wanting to accomplish. I would say I definitely have the idea of what I want to create, the business model, how it will actually be implemented, and or who can actually do the technology piece and the real estate piece and all the other pieces that go with it. I have no idea, but this is the very first time I ever thought about it, and all of that stuff didn't matter.
Wow.
Because I recognize that's not my job. My job, I've never said this phrase before, my job is to be the incubator for the dream. Cool, huh?
Yeah, very nice.
Now, my job is to be the incubator. And now that I just received that word, that's exactly what I felt like I was yesterday. Because there were even times part of me said, oh, I should get up and do something and move my body. And another part of me said, like, no, just stay here. And like I was watching a program the other day where this penguin came back, from his icy ordeal in the water to feed, but he came back to sit on top of his eggs to keep them warm. And I thought, well, golly jeepers, now that he's going to sit on the eggs, he has to sit on them for days. He doesn't move. He has to sit there for days and incubate these little babies. And that's kind of how I felt yesterday. It was kind of a non-movement day. And I was just kind of held up in a space where I was incubating ideas. And then I would, feel led to watch a certain program, and I would catch just a phrase that would be like, yes, that was the phrase I needed to hear, or that was the scene I needed to see. And I'm always fascinated, but this is a continual thing for me. I'm always fascinated how my inner being gets my attention to focus in on specific phrases, words, and ideas that I see on television or that I read online. Because they're exactly what it is. It's like that's how my inner being talks to me. And so yesterday was a big day of, why are you keeping this big thing that you really desire out in the future? It can start incubating today. And I went, wow, that's so cool. So I was incubating my business. I did a whole bunch of stuff on my website, and this was a big thing yesterday. I was just playing with, I wanted to tweak like this one sentence. And all of a sudden I had the idea of, the part of Project X, that's the big premium service that I want to create. Mm-hmm. And I haven't known what to do with it, or do I need a separate website for it or whatever. Well, I kind of have my coaching packages, the pricing. It's not hidden. I just don't want to lead with that. So you have to read certain content and then find the click through, because it's not like a page that's in the menu. And I went in there, and at the bottom of it, I started to make like an addendum. And I don't know if anyone will see it, but it was significant to me, because it basically was saying, if you're interested in my premium package, I have something exclusive that's only available to a few, because I can only take a few to do it. And then I just kind of had 2 or 3 sentences talking about what it is. And if this is something you're interested, call me and let's talk about it, and I'll give you more details. And even though I didn't put a whole lot of information there, what it did for me was said, I put myself out there. I'm now saying that this is available. It's no longer something that is hidden from the world.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And that felt very nice. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm out there. I know I can be found. I know that's like a no brainer. But that was another piece of my my Project X. It's like I'm really out there. And now I have, oh my gosh, Project XYZABC. Because if you knew how big my end game was, or what I call the end game business, it's like mega huge. And so that was in the incubator yesterday. And what else? Oh yeah, Project Man, Project Relationship. That was in my incubator. I had all sorts of wonderful, delightful thoughts about a relationship over the weekend. And then I don't mention this until something's significant, but I've dropped another couple pounds. So Project Body is well on its way. And it's just a cool feeling to step on the scale going, really? Really? Huh. So I don't really know the time frame. I'd have to go back. I keep a journal. I'd have to go back to my journal to see. But it's like in my mind, where I feel like I started when I knew that I just stopped following food rules was about 10 pounds ago. And maybe it's been 6 months that it's taken those 10 pounds to go away. I don't know. But I know that they're really gone. And what do I mean by this? This will only make sense to somebody who has been up and down on the scale. Is the scale is only going in one direction now.
That's good.
And it doesn't matter what I eat or what my activity level is. The scale keeps moving in the same direction. And so it's like it's holding, my body is becoming comfortable at a lower weight than it was 6 months ago.
Very
and
good.
So it's like, wow. So all of my big three, I feel like I had major progress this weekend on all of them. And so of course that felt wonderful, and yay, what a great weekend I had.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a lot of good progress. That's really good.
It is. I hope other people are having really great progress. And even if they don't want to call in and tell us about it, just comment on loatoday.net. There's a comment page.
That's true.
And there's a comment, at the bottom of our broadcast recording. And we'd love to hear like what your weekend was like and how you're making progress.
Yeah, that
and
would be fun.
We'll talk about it on the show.
that'd be a lot of fun. Or yeah, just to even talk live to somebody like that. Because, well, it's always fun to talk to a listener. I mean, it's when you're talking to the listener, that's when it all feels more real, Because otherwise it
Talking
sounds like...
to me doesn't feel real? Is this what you're telling me?
No, it does feel real. But it doesn't feel like we're doing a podcast to all these hundreds and hundreds of listeners, which we are, But when we're doing it, it just feels like we're talking to each other,
Because right now we are.
Because we are, yeah. Funny how
and we're
works.
letting other people listen in on us. They get to be spies.
That's right, yes.
They're like the proverbial fly on the wall. They're listening in.
And we love them. We love them. We certainly do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And by the way, for those who are the new ones, we want to encourage them to become subscribers, because the subscribers, they're the ones who have been with us for months and months and years, and they get all of our episodes fed right to their smartphones or their other tablets or computers or whatever they're using. And they listen to, on average, somewhere between 30 and 45 episodes a month, which is fabulous, astonishing, amazing, wonderful.
That's astounding.
Yeah. So it proves that once you become a subscriber, you listen and you listen and you listen, because if I can be so bold, the content is so good. I mean, we have fun stuff. We have good stuff that people want to listen to. So take the time. It's right on the homepage, loatoday.net. Subscription information is right there. And once you subscribe, send a little note to your friends via social media. Let them know too, because that's part of how we spread the word.
Absolutely.
So let's see. Are we getting back to the book today? Oh, you got more?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know that you've looked at our website lately, but I went and played with it a little bit, and I took our book offer that was free, but now it's $2.99 for Kindle and
thank you. I completely forgot
for the paperback.
Yeah, because somebody who clicked that would now find they're being charged. That would probably not feel so good. So thank you for changing that.
It's no longer at the very top.
That's okay.
But if you just scroll down, you'll still see the image of the book, and all the links for the different country codes are still there. But it's, just in case you can't remember the exact title, go to loatoday.net, and on our homepage, you will find the book. And if that's something that you're interested in, getting inspired with all sorts of wonderful stories of how people have manifested various things, please go to the website and check that out.
And by the way, I already have 2 people that I am arranging to talk with privately who want to share their stories for the next book. So the next book is already underway, believe it or not.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so
very cool.
Things are moving along.
Okay, I think that's it for all the things, the prefab things that I wanted to chat about.
That's the news.
Yes, that's
all the news that we care to share.
Wendy.
There it is. Yep. So we're going to go back to the book. That's what this book should be called. It should be called The Book, because I think we both agree this is the best primer on the law of attraction for anyone who's a newbie.
I do agree.
This is definitely the one. It makes, not that there aren't any other good books out there. There are, but this one is so far above them, head and shoulders above them, because in one book it will give you grounding that the others don't come close to doing. Because it just fills in so many gaps and answers so many questions right out of the gate in such an easy way to understand. So that's why we're working through this book. And we're currently up to part 4, The Art of Allowing. We're up to a subsection that's entitled, Do We All Want to Allow Joyousness? And we're in one of those Jerry and Abraham dialogues. So this actually it's a pretty quick one. It leads right into the next one, which is, but what about when others are having negative experiences? So I guess we have to do the joyousness first.
Okay, so let's start there.
So Jerry asks, are most of us in physical form seeking to understand this art of allowing, or are you saying that only those of us who are speaking to you want that understanding?
And Abraham says, all of you who exist upon earth today in physical bodies intended before your emergence into these bodies to understand and be an allower. But most of you, from your physical perspective, are far from understanding or wanting it, and would rather try to control one another rather than to allow one another. It is not difficult to learn to control the direction of your thoughts, but it is utterly impossible to control one another.
As so many people find over and over again to their dismay.
Yeah, and honestly, that reminds me of like my incubator point that I was in this weekend. I really was catching the understanding in a much deeper way, because I was now having an experience of incubating these thoughts and just basking them and thinking on them and just, like letting them flow in and out of me. Mm-hmm. How I can see how it's so important to really focus on what you desire before you take action. Because, considering what I had just said, earlier in this conversation, how in the past, I always thought that, my XYZ ABC part of it, the bigness of it, because it's so big and requires a lot of capital and a lot of technology, I just thought it would be way down the line. And because it's way down the line in my thought process, I can now understand it takes more incubation. Not because it takes the law of attraction more to create it, but it's taking more time for me to believe it and get lined up with it. Because in my mind, it's really big. I mean, really super darn big. And it's so far outside of my skill sets or my monetary ability to. I've never raised capital before, never done that. If I didn't have to raise capital, I don't have that kind of income anyway. So I'm still thinking it's something that's going to require raising capital and,
right.
and knowing people in an arena that I don't currently have. So because the way I'm viewing it, there's so many things I don't currently have access to. I'm understanding from a very experiential perspective now why it's important for me to really be thinking on this and incubating it and bathing it in my desire and the joy of, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun, at the fulfillment of it. But I got to tell you, yesterday was fun too. It's not like I'm waiting for the fun to happen. It's fun just thinking about it and dreaming it up and thinking about different facets and, maybe it can go this way or maybe it can go that way or, but I recognize how valuable just allowing the thinking process to be in the dreaming process, because I have always been such an action taker that as soon as I had the idea, like, why not now? My first impulse was, boom, let's go do something. And it was almost like my inner being, like, slammed me back into my bed, like, nope, not going anywhere.
Wait for it.
Yeah, just think on this. Just have the fun of dreaming. And I'm like, okay, fine, if that's what you require. But it's like, it was fun. And I think part of that is, what Abraham is saying here. We came into this physical existence with the knowing in advance of that we wanted to be allowers. That was our intention. But that's not what happened when we got here. Mm. It's like we lost that awareness so quickly because the people around us who'd been on planet Earth a whole lot longer, they had already forgotten. Yes. And so we kind of got trained away from it. But like, as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, this is what my inner being is bringing me back to. That which I intended from the very beginning, which is to be an allower.
Exactly.
And so I just absolutely know with certainty that the bigness of the big project that I have in mind for a business may not be ready to like pop today, but I'm having so much fun just thinking about it. It's like, ooh, I think for the first time I really started to understand the real potency and purpose for incubating a thought and a dream before you just jump out and take action.
I love too how when you were describing about the bigness of it and how that bigness requires time. It's a beautiful way of describing it. But there's also another way of looking at it that we never really think about, and yet it turns out to be true. I mean, we all hear about how when stuff doesn't show up as quickly as we expect, we have layers of resistance in place. Well, we don't think of stuff seeming like it's so big to be a layer of resistance, and yet that's what it is. We're saying, wow, that is so big, I don't know if I can bring that in that quickly. And there we are resisting.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point, because it wasn't until yesterday I realized, when I was posed the question, why not now? Why not start focusing on this now? Why not start bringing it in now? My answer was because it's so big.
Yeah, right.
I don't have the resources. I don't have the money. I don't know the people. I don't have the network, which every one of those, I don't, those are all called resistance.
They are. Yeah.
And it's not like I'm like in a really negative state over it.
No.
But my current today reality, my current today reality is I don't have the investment capital for this business.
Yeah.
I don't have all the resources. That's my current today reality. But I started focusing on my vibrational reality. And everything I need is in my vibrational reality.
What makes it resistance is that we so normally see that as what is, and what is what we have to focus on. And that's kind of the trap in a sense. That's where the resistance comes into it. And what you're doing by taking the steps to focus on the vibration is saying, you know what? I don't want to be stuck in that anymore. I'm not clear exactly how I'm going to get out of it, but if I focus on my vibration, somehow I will have a breakthrough. So that's what you do. You focus on your vibration.
Well, and I'll be honest, I'm not even focusing on the vibration. I'm just focusing on the idea of the dream.
Well, there you go. Okay.
The idea of the business, because I've never focused on vibration. Maybe some people do. I never focused on vibration because I always think of vibration as it's just part and parcel. Like every thought I have has a vibration attached to it. So I don't worry about the vibration. I just think about what's the thought I'm thinking, knowing that the thought has a vibration.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, no, that's fair. I've gotten to the point now where I equate vibration with good feeling. And so when I say vibration, what I really should be saying is good feeling, because that's what I really mean.
Well, and honestly, I don't even focus on the feeling. I focus on the thoughts. And then I start to notice if the thoughts start to have a feeling quality to them.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thought has to come first. You can't really feel the thought until you have the thought first. It's kind of hard to do that.
Right. But, that's something that for a long time I have been aware that I can have lots of thoughts that have no feeling attached to them, or at least not a perceivable feeling. Kind of like, yeah, and like I have a thought, but it doesn't have much meaning to me. I don't feel it enough in a way, or not intense enough that it actually like shows up on the barometer.
Mm.
It's like, because I can have lots of fleeting thoughts, and I think I'm a very fast thinker, and sometimes I can go through like a whole Rolodex of thoughts, but I don't always stop to lean into them long enough for a feeling to actually show up.
It may not be one that we can identify. I think I've been asking myself about this for quite some time, because I kind of long concluded, like you did, that very often there is not an emotion attached to the thoughts. But I have to say I'm beginning to lean a little bit in a different direction, which is so often these thoughts come through so fast and get followed by other thoughts. I just don't have time to register the emotion, but the emotion may be there anyway. The feeling may be there anyway. It's happening so quickly I can't hardly keep up. But
that could very well be. Yeah.
I also notice that many of these times are when I start to feel overwhelmed. Overwhelm is definitely an emotion. And it happens from that accumulative effect of all these thoughts coming through with all of their vectors going on at the same time. And after a while, it's like, wait a minute, just stop the presses. I just can't process anymore right now. Mm-hmm. Well, that's an emotional response for sure.
Yeah, no, that is. And usually, because that like really got your attention, because overwhelm is one of those things that usually does get our attention.
Oh, yeah, very well.
But I think what made my weekend incubation time feel so unique for me is because I really was aware that I was having feeling, and that it was feeling really good, and it was feeling exciting, versus like if I just say to myself, okay, I want to start thinking on blah, blah, blah. I can think about it, but it can feel really dry, as in like no real emotion, because it's like somehow my investment is not in it, my attachment. I'm just thinking it because it seems like the right thing to do. But when I receive a thought, there seems to be more feeling attached to it. Because I feel when I receive a thought from my inner being is sending it with my inner being's vibration or my inner being's feeling. And if I receive it in that way, and like to me, if I'm open to receive it, I receive it just as it's sent. And it does have that really exquisite, juicy feeling attached to it. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like I'm just riding the wave of what's coming to me. I'm not having to make it happen. I'm not having to go, oh, I'm going to, think really hard and then the feeling will show up. It's just, it showed up. And that's something that's happening for me more and more. And it's so delightful.
Yeah, I can see that. In fact, I would add to it from my own perspective, my own experience. When I try to do that effort type thinking, I fall behind. I literally can't keep up with my own process when I do that. Do you know what I mean? Like the thoughts are coming faster than I can process because I'm trying to effort into existence one particular thought. And, I just missed 5 that went by. Right? So it kind of like is my way of training myself, let go of trying to make the thought happen. That's why my question is, I need another thought. I need a better feeling thought. Just send it to me. Just give it to me. I don't have time to figure this out. Just give it to me.
I don't think I've ever said this before, but I guess I would call it a known fact. I learned it in NLP, and I've heard others who study, brain science and how our emotions connect with our brain talk about this. Neuroscience, that's what I'm looking for, is that every emotion has a longevity of only 90 seconds.
Really?
If you do not fuel it with an additional thought. And not that it's easy to do this, but if you can isolate one thought, and so let's say you have one thought of I'm overwhelmed, and in that moment you feel it, if you were not to add one more thought, if you could almost stop time, that feeling would dissipate within 90 seconds.
I'm amazed that it would last that long. I mean, you said only, like that's a
Oh,
short,
I mean, up
90
like up
seconds sounds like a
to,
lot.
but up to 90 seconds.
Yeah.
But the reason sometimes when we're in a negative state, it lingers is because we keep adding other fuel or
Yeah.
other thoughts to the existing thought.
I can see that. Sure.
Yeah. And so that's something I remember practicing that when I heard that, I went, okay, that's really fascinating.
Mm.
So if I would like get a thought like, oh my God, my boss is driving me crazy. And then I'd stop. And this moment I want to like go into, yeah. And the other day, nope, stop. Don't add that. And what else? Nope, don't stop. Add that. Do not add that one. And every time I wanted, because it was like so natural for me to like go down this path of like just spewing one negative thought after another, after another, after another, if I can catch it and say, nope, don't add anything more. Let this 90 seconds burn out, and then we're going to move on. And it's very similar to really to what the new thing that you're doing, where you're capturing any negative emotions as they come and reaching for a better feeling thought. You know, this was just kind of the way I learned
similar.
to do it many, many years ago.
Yeah.
But I do like knowing that a thought or an emotion can only last 90 seconds max if you don't add anything else to the fire. So that might be something fun that somebody wants to play with.
Yeah, I'd almost like to. I don't really want to do it myself, but I'd like to see somebody do a scientific study to see if it's actually true. Can they measure and find that it doesn't exceed 90 seconds? It sounds fascinating.
Well, I mean, it came from one of those scientific studies.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell you what journal or who did the study, but no, I'm reporting it from that, and that's where I learned it in an advanced program many years ago.
That's very interesting.
And it started to slow things down for me. I mean, this is before I really knew law of attraction, but I started to purposely recognize when I was fueling my own negative energy. I'm like, I do have quite the ability to keep it going when I want to. So I'm like, if I can keep it going, let's see what I can do to stop it.
That's right. Yeah, and that's cool. That gave
you the roll.
You gave yourself a really good tool that way, so that you could, like you say, slow things down. Because that slowing things down is important when you want to maintain your focus on what it is that you want. And when you can slow things down just by slowing yourself down, it makes it so much easier to do exactly that. Whereas when we're kind of pulled in that 5-direction thing, you can't hang on to anything. It's hard to hold your attention on anything, let alone get that good feeling place. It just almost seems like out of control. So being able to slow yourself down, that's really good. Really, really good.
So let's see what else Jerry is asking about.
Well, this time he's asking, what about when others have negative experiences? He says, so is this state of allowing that we are from some level seeking, one in which we can still see and be aware of the negatives around us, or what feels negative from our perspective, and still remain joyous? Or will we not be able to see it at all? Or won't we see it as negative?
I don't even know what he said. Do you?
He kind of he was trying to do the same thing from 3 different perspectives, but he's basically trying to ask the question, when we are dealing with a negative experience, or when others are having a negative experience more precisely, what do we do with it? How do we handle it? And what are we trying to accomplish when we're in that zone of, okay, this person is feeling negative, what do I do about it?
Okay, so Abraham says all of that.
Abraham understood much better than we did.
Honestly, I'm not quite sure what this means. So they go on to say, when you were focused upon the things that were important to you, you were not watching the television and you were not reading the newspapers. You were enjoying what you were doing. You were giving your attention to what was important to you. And the law of attraction brought more and more and more power and clarity to that. And so the other was simply not drawn into your experience because it did not fit into your intentions of growth and achievement. When you are clear about what you want, you do not have to forcefully keep yourself upon the track. For by the law of attraction, it occurs. And so it is not difficult to be an allower. It comes easily and simply because you will not be so interested in all of those things that have nothing to do with with what you are about. Your television, while it offers you much information that is of value, offers much, much, much more information that has very little to do with what you want in your life experience. Many of you sit and watch the television simply because it is there, because no other decision has been made. And so watching the television is not so much usually a deliberate act as it is an act by default.
Sure is.
And in the state of not deliberateness, in that state of no decision, you are opening yourself to be influenced by whatever is thrown at you. And so, as you are being bombarded literally with the stimulation of thoughts and unwanted things that occur all around your world, and because you have made no decision about what you do want to think about, you find yourself accepting into your experience through thought many things that you would not have chosen.
So true.
This is what creating by default is. Giving thought to something without being deliberate about it, thinking about it, and therefore attracting it whether you want it or not.
Yeah. Television is a great example of how people do that. The default thinking, I can see where people can get confused about what default thinking is and how the negativity of it ends up affecting us. But television is a great example for understanding it, because so much of what's on television, everybody can kind of identify with that zombie look, right? Where you're just sitting there and you're just zombified by the TV. It's almost like,
new word, zombified.
Zombified, yeah. You've been hypnotized, right? Hypnotized by whatever the TV's throwing at you. And a lot of what the TV throws at you is fairly negative. So you're basically adopting all of this negative thought process being thrown at you by these television programs. And you end up processing it, and guess what? You end up attracting more stuff that's like it. So your life becomes like TV in a sense, in the sense that you attract similar vibrational stuff.
So I get what they're talking about, and I totally get what you were just saying. That was a good amplification of what they shared. And, I'm thinking to myself, unless I'm snowing myself here, I think I'm a deliberate TV watcher.
That's good.
Like I don't think I'm a default TV watcher. And I watch a lot of TV, but I'm very deliberate about what I choose to watch. I purposely record television shows. Almost the fullness of what I watch on TV is things that I have purposely recorded. Very seldom do I just watch TV. And when I do, I have a handful of stations that I vacillate through, and I know what it is I'm searching for. And very rarely do I just have TV on in the background and whatever's there, let it be there. Because the moment, like, let's say I'm watching Big Bang Theory, and let's say there's 6 of them in a row, and I have that on in the background, the moment it goes to some other program, I'll go, oh, no, I don't want that. And I immediately go and change it. And so that's kind of been my style for watching TVs now for a good number of years. But I can't remember the last time I just let the TV be on, quote, any old station and let anything just show up inside my head.
Yeah, that's good. And I have to say my own experience is somewhat similar, because through my own other processes of trying to get control over my own thought process and focus only on stuff that I want to focus on and all that kind of thing, all the mirror work and all that good stuff. Through all of that, I find myself kind of like, as a result, not with any planning, but just kind of happened, one followed the other, that television watching for me most of the time isn't even interesting. I mean, my wife will put something on, and unless it's something that I really like, I want to get up and get out of the room as fast as possible. I just don't want to be there anymore. So I can identify with what you're talking about being a deliberate watcher. There are very few things that I really want to watch. There are some things I'll watch with her, stuff that we've seen before that she likes to watch, just so that we can do it together. But even then, if it has enough negative content in it, I'll get up and get something to eat or something just to get away, just long enough.
There's this new episode of Super Soul Sunday that got recorded yesterday, and it got recorded in 2 parts, and it's Elizabeth Gilbert is the author's name. It's the gal who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Right.
And it's a 2-part episode. And I thought, oh, now that's something interesting to me. I have stopped it 3 times. I don't even think I've gotten 2 full minutes into it because I'm thinking, oh, I want to watch this. And the moment it starts, I literally get inside of me, no. And I mean, even there's almost like oh, no, don't want it. Like a really abrupt reaction. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll turn that off, and then I'll come back to the TV maybe many hours later and go, okay, let's see how that feels now. And again, no. Like, okay. So I tried it again this morning, well, let's just have it on in the background. And again, it was no. And I went, okay, fine and dandy. I recorded it. It's of interest to me. And I'll watch it, obviously, when it feels good to do so. So I don't know. I don't think there's probably anything negative in that one. But I have a feeling, this is just my guess, there's probably something really juicy and meaty in it for me. And I need to be in the receptivity mode when I'm ready to receive that information. Like maybe where I'm at right now, I'm not ready for it.
Could be.
Like maybe I haven't thought other thoughts or other things have not yet been incubated so that by the time I do watch it, then I'll be ready to receive what's in there. But I have a feeling if I watched it now, when I'm done, I would hit delete and I would have missed out on the juicy kernels that are there for me because I'm not lined up for it yet. And that doesn't mean that I'm out of sync. It just means if I haven't been to the 4th grade and what's on there is information that you get after you've been through the 4th grade, then it would not be appropriate for me yet. I'm not ready to receive the gems that are in there. So,
what you're talking about seems to fit in perfectly with the next 2 subsections. So maybe we should cover those because they're directly addressing what you're talking about. The first one is I'll only look for what I want. Jerry asks Abraham, how would you tell me to achieve and maintain the state of allowing that I want in spite of the fact that I'm aware that there are many around me who, from their perspective, are experiencing pain or what I call negatives?
And Abraham says, we would suggest to you that you make a decision that no matter what you are doing in this day, no matter who you are interacting with, no matter where you are, that your dominant intent will be to look for those things that you want to see. And as that is your dominant intent by the law of attraction, you will attract only those things that you want to attract, and you will see only those things that you want to see.
So there's the basic idea of applied to the television, you being the deliberate television watcher, very selective about it. And then they go into more detail, which I think ties into the latter part you were talking about. And this one's entitled A Selective Sifter as a Selective Attractor. And is this one actually a dialogue? No, it's not. You want to read this one or shall I?
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, why don't you read it?
It says, as your dominant intent is to attract only that which you desire, you will become a more selective sifter. You will become a more selective attractor. You will become a more selective noticer. In the beginning, you will still notice that you are attracting some of that which is not to your liking because you will have set forth some momentum from thoughts and beliefs that have been before this time. But in time, once well-being has been in your dominant intention at the beginning of every day for 30 to 60 days, you will begin to notice that there is very little that is in your life experience that is not to your liking. For your momentum, your thought, will have carried you beyond what is now occurring. It is difficult to be an allower when you see someone very close to you doing that which you feel threatens you, or doing that which threatens someone else. And so you say, Abraham, I don't understand what you mean when you say, I can think it away, that through my thoughts I can deal with it, and that no action need be taken. And we say, it is through your thoughts that you invite, but what you are living today is a result of thoughts that you have thought before this time, just as the thoughts that you are thinking today you are projecting into your future. Your thoughts today are now pre-paving your future, and there will be a point in time when you'll move to that future place, and you will then live the results of the thoughts that you are thinking now, just as today you are living the results of the thoughts that you have thought before. So that's kind of a convoluted way of saying it, but basically the earlier part where they said it's just going to start to happen to you, that's what you're doing. It's just kind of happening too well. Now you're expressing it in terms of your inner being giving you the message. No, 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 don't watch that. Don't watch that. But you're not having to really think about this very much. It's just coming to you, and you're just acting on, okay, I won't watch it.
Well, and I really like at the very beginning, it says, as your dominant intent is to attract only that which you desire, you will become a more selective sifter.
Yeah.
And I think, and I never thought about it in these terms, but I think I've become a very selective sifter.
Yeah. Well, your whole story shows that.
Well, and then it says, but in time, once well-being has been your dominant intention at the beginning of every day for 30 to 60 days, you will begin to notice that there will be very little that is in your life experience that is not to your liking. And I got to say, that's kind of how I live today.
Yeah.
There's very little that is not to my liking. And when there's something that shows up that's not, I kind of giggle at it and go, I wonder what in me attracted that. And I can clean up that vibration too. Or what in that, maybe was the path of least resistance to get me to some other place. But I just kind of jokingly go through most of the things that are not to my liking, almost as a point of curiosity, like, well, how did that one slip in? Because that's not typical or normal for my day.
Or sometimes you just turn on the television program and the inner being says, no, not that. Don't watch that.
Exactly. But I don't even take that as like there's something wrong with it.
No, not necessarily.
Like I'm not quite lined up to receive all the goodness that is in it. Like I'm not, like, today if I had it on in the background while I'm working, I'm not going to be giving much undivided attention if there's a whole bunch of gems and treasures in that interview. So it's like, okay, that's cool. I'll wait.
Now, for me, the message is always, if it's going to be something to play in the background, my message is always don't play it. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the content of it is. And the reason is I don't do well focusing on what I need to focus on when I have something in the background. I'm one of those people who, in school, if my roommate was playing the stereo, I had to go to the library because I just couldn't study. I couldn't think. The noise was just that. It was noise. It was distracting. It was keeping my attention away from where I wanted to be. Whereas there's some people who just love to have something in the background.
You're an auditory guy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
What's here is really significant in your experience.
Exactly. Whereas there's some people who, they've got the TV going or the radio going. In fact, Louise doesn't like to have silence. She wants something going on in the background at all times. And that just drives me nuts when I'm trying to do something. The only way I can handle that is I'm in conversation with her or something like that. And even then we turn it down. But
it is kind of interesting. And I've always marveled at this about me because I've always liked to have TV on in the background. On occasion, I can do music, but not nearly as often. I know other people love music constantly, and sometimes music just drives me crazy. I do bet, like today, I had MASH on in the background, and then the programming went to When Sally Met Harry, and that felt good. And then it went to Pretty in Pink, and I went, okay, that'll be fine. But those are all things that I've seen enough times that they're not going to like grab my attention where I don't have to focus on it to know what's happening because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
But there's something about having that noise, because to me that is my white noise, that causes me to almost put blinders on to get very focused.
That's wild.
And that's how I get focused. And I noticed for a couple hours this morning, I didn't have any sound. And even though I was doing fine, there came a point that I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get restless because I need some sound. So it is interesting how different people who operate out of different modalities.
Very different. Opposite modalities. Because I'm exactly the opposite. If I have stuff in the background, I literally can't focus. I'm just so distracted. I need quiet. If I have quiet, I can just plow through things.
That's so funny. It reminds me when I used to work in an office and go to an actual, job, I always had to have a radio on that I had in my cube, and I'd have it on softly so it didn't bother other people. But it was like required in order for me to work. And
funny.
There was a time I hadn't been into the office for a long time, and apparently somebody else had like borrowed my radio, not knowing I was going to be in the office.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll just work without it. Oh my God. It was like I was going crazy. It's like I couldn't focus. And I'm like, and finally I got up and said does somebody know where my radio is? And somebody goes, oh, yeah, so-and-so borrowed it. And I went and I grabbed it off their cube and they weren't there and I put it back. And then as soon as I started playing it, I was like, oh, everything in me like relaxed, which I just thought was that was just me, but, so very opposite of you. And like other people have, earbuds in and they're listening to their music all day. For me, I can't stand the feeling of something in my ears.
In fact, I was just realizing, I was talking earlier about how you asked me for an example of when I needed to use my new process, where I had to stop myself and ask for a better feeling thought. And I told a story about how I had 2 or 3 phone calls at the same time while I'm working on this really hot project. Well, guess what? When you get phone calls, there's a ringer associated with it. So each one of those phone calls, and I had 2 different phones I was working with, was ringing while I was trying to deal with these other things at the same time. That's what was driving me nuts, because I don't work well with all that noise. All that noise was just like, oh, bam, 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 just keep hitting me. No, stop it. I can't take it anymore.
I have to say, as many times as you and I have talked about this subject, I always find it fascinating, because I was having this other thought this weekend about how I think the way I think, because it's me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's typical for people to think that most people think like they think.
Oh, yeah.
That I have also found to be very common.
Sure.
And so when I hear people, individuals say, well, the majority of people think, and then fill in the blank, what it really tells me is that's how you think.
Yes, right.
And and especially if you have somebody who they're very sanguine type personalities, love to use universal words like every time such and such happens, or everybody thinks this way, or it's all the time, it's always. Those are universal quantifiers that are like every, it's never just a rare group or a small group or some people, and I heard somebody saying something the other day, and in my head, I heard my own modification, which is, okay, not necessarily all people do this, but it might be appropriate to say some people, or I've known people, or even if they say most people in my experience. Yeah. But you can't say all people if you haven't met all 7 billion people on the planet.
This is true. Well, you can, but you're setting yourself up.
You can say it, but is it a statement of fact?
Hard to prove.
If it's not proved, no, it's not a statement of fact. It's a statement of an opinion, So I was just playing around with, like how it is that we like to talk about things, and do we attribute it to everybody, all people, some people, one person, just me? So when you talk about how you take in information and you like silence, I would say, I know for you that is true because I've heard you say it.
Sure.
And I've said it many times. I like, certain kinds of white noise in the background. Music is not necessarily a white noise for me. Only Broadway musicals are the right kind of music for me.
That's funny. Wow.
But, it's fascinating because I'll bet every person who listens to our show probably has their own particular way that they take in information that feels good to them.
That's true. That's very true. Now, there is one point that I do want to make, and that is I can think of one absolute, and this is always
the show is coming to an end.
The show is coming to an end. That one I can count on every single day.
I love how you launch into the end of the show. I try to anticipate it. I look at my clock and I go, oh, he's getting ready.
He's getting ready. He's winding up.
It's the wind up, the pitch. Boom, home run.
Oh, but it makes it so much fun. It's a nice way to get into a happy, you know how I like that swoop ending. It's a way to get a good swoop ending to the show.
I know you do. And we're laughing at the end, and there's no better way to end than laughter. Absolutely. So I hope everybody has a good laughter day. Absolutely.
I hope they do too. And it's how we get them to come back next time. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to ask you to come back next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.